What is up, you guys? So today we're going to talk about overtraining and some of the signs to pay attention to when it comes to overtraining. Overtraining doesn't exist, but it does exist. So what this means and what I mean is it's not necessarily the fact that it's overtraining. I like to call it more under recovery of your central nervous system. So everything that we do as far as training, even anything taxing in your everyday life, whether you have like more of a hands-on and physical job, those things are going to tax your central nervous system. So you don't even necessarily have to be working out, running, lifting. You don't have to be doing any of those things to experience overtraining. And that's why I don't really like to call it overtraining, because you don't have to be training to experience overtraining. It's more under recovery of your central nervous system. So that is what I want you guys to recognize. So what this really is about is just being recovered. So some of the signs of overtraining are going to be things like constant fatigue. You're suddenly feeling constantly tired, low on energy, just not motivated to train or follow your program at all. It can be insomnia. It can be not being able to fall asleep very easily, not getting a good amount of quality sleep. So you're not sleeping through the whole night. You're maybe waking up constantly and then going back to bed. You're waking up and not feeling like you got a good amount of sleep. You're waking up and you're still feeling tired. You might feel consistent but mild soreness. So you're feeling these aches and pains and they're just not really going away. It's not really DOMS. It's just constant soreness that almost doesn't stop. Or you just might be feeling extreme soreness even though your intensity or your volume hasn't really changed in the program. So that can be another sign. Another one is you're getting sick often. So let's say you got the cold and now you have the flu and now you have a sore throat. One of the things is your immune system will be weakened when you're overtraining or under recovered. And that can be a sign that, hey, your body's not able to recover right now. We need to take a step back. Another thing is you can be feeling headaches more often. And it also might make you feel more irritable and more annoyed with people. You might be more anxious. You might feel a little depressed. You'll feel less motivated. Another one we're going to pay attention to in your program is resting heart rate. So ideally, as you become more athletic, as you become healthier, your resting heart rate's going to go down. So if your resting heart rate is going down and then suddenly in the middle of your program we start seeing your resting heart rate go back up, that is a sign that, hey, you could be overtraining. So these are all things that I pay attention to in your program and that we'll pay attention to in your weekly check-ins. If, let's say, you have a spike in your resting heart rate, it could be a flaw, it could be you're anxious, it could be a lot of different things. So it's not an immediate sign to overtraining, but it is something that we want to pay attention to from week to week. So some of the things that we're going to pay attention to in your weekly check-ins in relation to your central nervous system and how you're recovering is going to be your resting heart rate, your training, your nutrition and water intake, your stress levels, how well you're sleeping, and then how you're feeling overall. So all of these things are things that you're going to want to monitor. If you just have one bad week, that's okay. That happens. That's normal. But if it's something that continues to just get worse and worse, then that's a sign that, hey, we need to back off so your body can recover. So there's a few things that we can do when this happens. So one of the things is a deload week. So a deload week is when you cut your volume in half and you take a rest week. It's a lot of bodybuilding exercises, some cardio. Let's say that you're doing 5x5 at 70%. Then you're gonna do 5x5 at 45%. That's not even half. So some of the signs of needing a deload is if your performance is slowly getting worse over time. It's not as if you jumped on this program and then suddenly your performance is absolute shit. It's like your RPEs, if we're working with RPEs, something that you used to be able to lift easily is suddenly hard and you're having to drop the weight down and it feels a lot harder. And again, you'll start to see that over your weekly check-ins. You might see the numbers slowly drop over time, and that's a sign that, hey, you need a deload. So another problem that you might see in a program is that you're doing too much training volume overall. So something else that you might have to do is minimize total training volume. So this isn't just a deload. This is you're taking on too much work. You're training too hard, too quickly, or just lifting too much volume that your body is not able to recover because your body's not ready to handle that much volume yet. So this is why there's something called progressive overload. You want to make sure that you're in between overtraining and undertraining. You want to find that sweet spot that you're not going beyond the limit that you're able to go. So this is called maximal recoverable volume, and you don't want to go past that limit. That is when you'll start to see these symptoms of feeling sick, of feeling fatigued, of feeling not motivated, of decreased performance. This is something that we can avoid. Deloads, we can't really avoid. If you're training to the point that you're supposed to be training at, deloads are necessary in a program, but going past your ability to recover is overtraining, and that is something that we can avoid by paying attention to these things. So a way to tell if this is actually the problem that you're facing is full range of motion. Are you able to do a full range of motion? Let's say you're squatting. Are you able to squat to depth, or are you doing more of a quarter squat? If you're doing a quarter squat, then you're going too heavy because your body's not able to handle that weight yet, and doing this too often without purpose is going to cause a lot of problems, not only in your form, in your technique, but also in your central nervous system's ability to recover. Again, you might also feel excess soreness. This is normal. Beginning any program, you're going to feel some soreness, but if you feel soreness consistently 4 weeks into the program and you're just not recovering, that's a big sign that you need to back off. We're doing too much volume too quickly. You may even feel pain outside of soreness. So this could be thoracic or lumbar spine pain, lower back. You could feel it in your neck. You might feel impingement in your shoulders. You might feel some of that cracking and popping when you're benching. Your knees and your hips might be hurting. This might not be a sign of overtraining. This could be a sign of just improper form. And this could be regardless of overtraining. You just might need to work on your form a bit more. So these are things you want to pay attention to regardless. So again, if you go through 1 week of feeling, pretty crappy, it might not be overtraining. It could just be you got sick, and getting sick happens. But next week, you're sick with something new, you feel sick again. Okay, something might be going on here. Let's see how this next week feels. Sick again, poor performance. You're not even able to lift half of the volume properly that you did the week before. Then that's when we back off and we're like, okay, this might be an issue. But again, you have to look at multiple things. Don't just worry about resting heart rate alone. Don't just worry about your training feels crappy alone, because guess what? Sometimes your training's gonna feel crappy. Outside of taking a deload and decreasing your training volume, there's one more thing that we can also do to help prevent overtraining, and that is paying attention to your nutrition. This is a big one for me because I, as a lot of you guys know, powerlift obviously and run marathons. And in my training programs, I'm never not doing both. I'm never not running, and you shouldn't use double negatives, but I'm always running and I'm always lifting despite my program. The amount of volume is going to depend on which season I'm in. So let's say I'm in powerlifting season, which I'm not right now. One of the reasons that I'm able to do both and not see decreased performance in either is because of my nutrition. So nutrition plays a key role in recovering. So if you're already under eating in a program, let's say you're cutting, you want to cut for this meet, that might be a problem for you. It's not a problem for everyone. It really depends from person to person, so it's really important to pay attention to all of these aspects of your program. So deloads, volume, nutrition. So as your coach, I'm going to pay attention to those signs, but you have to be the one that pays attention to how you're feeling. It's not something that you're gonna have to worry about too much, because typically I don't put you on a high volume program, especially as a new client. I put you on a similar training volume that you were already on, or sometimes a little bit less depending on what style of training you are doing. So it's not something you're going to really have to worry about too much, but it is something that's important to pay attention to and for you to be aware of. If you guys have any other questions about overtraining, let me know. Now we're going to get on to how to measure your resting heart rate. This is something that I'll have you do each week in your program. It's pretty simple. Normally, to get a really good estimate, you want to measure a resting heart rate 3 times and then take the average of that. So you do want to make sure to get your resting heart rate as soon as you wake up. It's when you're less anxious. Again, if you wake up anxious, let's say you wake up with a panic attack. I used to have panic attacks all of the time out of my sleep. Your resting heart rate's just going to be abnormally high, probably in the hundreds. Mine's usually 110 if I wake up with anxiety. When realistically my resting heart rate is 60 beats per minute. So that's a big change. And also just naturally having increased stress in your life. I forgot to mention this. Having increased stress in your life is going to raise your heart rate, your resting heart rate. So you want to be aware of those things as well. And also stress, I forgot to mention this also. Stress might play a role in overtraining. So again, this is why it's not always your training program or your nutrition that may be the problem. It might just be you have excess stress in your life right now that's not allowing you to recover, because some people, from what we've seen, stress can affect how you recover as well. Just not even physical stress, but like mental stress can fatigue you and play a role in how your performance goes, and overtraining as well. So something else to keep in mind. But how to measure your resting heart rate, let's get into it. I always just have people measure their resting heart rate on their wrist rather than on the side of their neck, just because it's safer to do it on your wrists. So I take my left arm and take my two fingers, my middle and my index finger, and you're gonna go and you're gonna measure on the outside of your wrist. So where your thumb is, you just wanna go on the outside. So then just pull up the timer on your phone, turn the timer on, and then wait until the 10-second mark to start counting, just so you for sure have your pulse. When it hits 10 seconds, then that's when you start counting, and you're gonna wait until it hits the 40-second mark. You're gonna count for 30 seconds. You can do it for less, you can do it for 15. The first beat that you feel after the 10-second mark, that is what you're going to count. And then you're going to multiply that number by 2. So my resting heart rate is 60 beats per minute. I just tested it yesterday and posted it on Instagram. But yeah, it's really easy to get your resting heart rate. And again, that is another factor that we look at to tell whether or not you're overtraining. Fun fact, if your resting heart rate is low, then you're doing good. 60 is a good number to fall within. That is a athletic number. I remember at one point I was at 40 beats per minute, and then I got anesthesia when I was getting, what surgery was I getting? They freaked out because my heart rate dropped below like 30 something. Like basically I almost died. When I woke up, they were like, yeah, we freaked out for a minute and had to stop because we thought you were about to die. So that scared me. I am a hypochondriac, so that's not something I want to hear when I'm waking up from surgery. 40 is extremely athletic. 60 is the goal number for pretty much all of my clients, whether or not you're a powerlifting client or just a physique client. More athletes will fall within 40 to 60. I would say 70 to 100 is still average, but I just want to say that average doesn't necessarily mean healthy. Ideally, we want to be within the 60 to 70 range is a good number to shoot for. So that is everything. That is all about overtraining and some of the signs and how to measure your resting heart rate. So that is it, guys. Thanks for watching, and hope you keep kicking ass on your program.